Hello, guys. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back. It's Elevated Cornerstone. And just jumping right in, today we're going to be talking about the CGPA. If you intend to study in the US. Um, Last week we talked about West evaluation and how sometimes after evaluating your transcripts via West, it could help improve your score. And so today we're going to be looking at the required CGPA if you intend to study abroad. So, one of the major concerns of international students, especially those whose CGPA is not very high, one of their major concerns is that, oh, am I going to get admission? Is the school going to take me? Am I going to get funding? Those are some of the top questions that from the people I have dealt with. Those are some of the concerns they have. Of course, some of them had really high GPA, but for those that didn't have high GPA, that was like a source of concern to them. So we'll be looking at CGPA today. I realized that shooting at the other side last week was really dark, so I tried to bring it here. I think the lighting over here is better than what we had last week. So that's one of the major concerns, CGPA, and of course that's one of the major things that the universities look at. They look at a combination of things, and we're going to be talking about those things as time goes on. They look at myriad things when considering whether they are going to give you admission or not. And of course, your CGPA is one of them because the CGPA is an indication that it shows how intelligent you are, like your past performance in school and all of that. So the CGPA is really, really important when we look at the admission process. So the first thing I want to say is that there is no definite CGPA. There is actually no definite CGPA that you can say that, oh, this is exactly what the school is looking for. And of course, I'm still going to break this down as we go along. So there's actually no one CGPA that you can say that, oh, this is the required CGPA if you want to travel abroad. This is the CGPA you must have. However, you should not have less than 2.5 CGPA. That is after your West evaluation. However, there is no definite CGPA. But it ranges from like above 2.5 to 4.0 according to what we have here. So you can't really say that, oh, like, of course I'm still going to break this down as we go along, but I just want to state that there was just definitely CGPA. So if you are thinking that, oh, well, my CGPA is not 3 point, but I had 2.7, I had 2.8, I had 2.9, I think it is still workable. It is still workable for grad school, but that would depend on other factors, which I am going to state as we go along. So one of those factors I'm going to state is that it depends on the school. It depends on the school you are looking at. There are different category of schools in the US. We have the Ivy League schools, we have the public schools, and also have the private school. Now, the Ivy League school usually would demand really high CGPA from you. Schools like Harvard, schools like Stanford, they would demand really high CGPA. A lot of time looking at the 3.95 to 4 point CGPA, that is what they will require of you. That's the Ivy League. And they will come down to the state schools. The state schools would usually require anything above 3.5. 3.5. That's what they will require. A lot of times state school require 3.5. A lot of other time, depending on the state school as well, they would require like 3 points. 3 points. And when you begin to go to like regional schools, which are also government funded, you begin to like see 2.75 CGPA, 2.7 CGPA. That's why I say that even if your CGPA is not 3 points, if your CGPA is not very high, there is still a probability that they would accept you, but that would depend on other factors. So like the school, which I just mentioned. Then the second factor would depend on the program. It will depend on the program you're applying to. Some programs are more strict than other programs. Some programs would require higher CGPA from you than other programs. Some programs, like some of those programs in the sciences, may require really high CGPA, but there are some other programs, like let's say some business programs. Sometimes I had someone who came into business and the CGPA was not up to 3 points. CGPA was not up to 3 points, and this is why I want to encourage those who have less than 3 point CGPA to not be discouraged. Don't be discouraged if this is something you really desire to do. It is still doable. It is still workable, and you still be able to get funding. But it's going to depend on some other factors which you would have to really put in effort, because they will look at the whole admission package altogether. So it's not just one thing. I know in Nigeria, for instance, we have the JAM. Usually the JAM and the post JAM is what determines your admission. But when you begin to look at admission outside of Nigeria, they consider a host of other factors. Like your CGPA, of course, they will look at that. They will look at your test scores. They will look at a host of other things like your resume, your cover letter, all those other things, your extracurricular activities. So it's not just that one thing that determines whether you get admission or not. They look at a host of other things, and one of those things they would look at, is your resume, is your cover letter, your statement of purpose, all those things. They consider them while considering whether they will give you admission or not. So don't be discouraged if your CGPA is not up to 3 points, or if you believe that, or if you've been discouraged because you think that, I would never be able to do this. I didn't graduate with the first class, or I didn't graduate with the second class upper. No matter your grade, then there's usually a breakdown of like your admission package. So it's not just one thing. It's not just your CGPA, and that's one of like the major points I want to pass across in this live broadcast today. That they don't only consider your CGPA when considering whether they will give you admission or not. There are a host of other factors that come into play. So, as I said, another thing will depend on your program. Some programs are stricter than other programs. Some programs would require, stricter. They have stricter requirements than other programs. So, like for instance, those that are going into nursing, for instance, that their CGPA is usually like they're usually pretty strict over there. But when you begin to come into, I think I did public administration. I think I did public administration. So like I think my CGPA, the CGPA they required was as at then was 2.75. But my CGPA was definitely higher than that. But what they required as at then was 2.75. So you see, it's doable, it's workable. You just need to have somebody that can help you through the process, somebody that can actually provide you with the necessary information. So that's just all I want to say for today as we talk about CGPA. This is something that I'm still going to create another live broadcast where we'll talk about CGPA and your test scores. Right now, there are a lot of schools that are not requiring the GRE and the TOEFL. We talked about TOEFL last week, how TOEFL is not required, is not compulsory. There are some schools that would require it, there are some schools that will mandate it. But if you don't want to write TOEFL, you can definitely look for schools that will not mandate TOEFL for you. So TOEFL is not compulsory as far as the US is concerned. But the GRE, a lot of schools will require the GRE, and if you are really looking at traveling abroad, you can take advantage of this window that is open currently. I think since COVID started, so many schools have not been requiring the GRE. That's one thing I realized, that a lot of schools have been waiving the GRE, though not all programs have been waiving it. For instance, the public health program, you still have to write the GRE because they have like they have SOFA. That's like a place where you apply. You don't apply directly to the school. You apply through SOFA. So SOFA requires GRE. I don't think they are waiving it. I don't think a lot of schools are not waiving. A lot of public health colleges are not waiving the GRE requirements. They are not. So that's why I said that it will depend on your school. It will depend on your program. But the truth is that there are so many schools right now since COVID. There are so many schools because they actually want people to they want people to apply. So there are so many schools since COVID that have not required CGPA. So this is like a very good time. This is a very good opportunity to take advantage of those to take advantage of the situation to apply if you don't want to write GRE, and if your program or the school you're applying to is not requiring the GRE for your program. So, guys, that's just all I have to say for today. When we meet next time, we'll be talking about the GRE, um, this course that is usually required for your GRE. So we'll be talking about GRE. We'll be talking about those international exams like IELTS. For those that want to go to Canada, they usually require IELTS. The US require TOEFL depending on the school. If you're applying to a school that mandates TOEFL, you might need to write it. Then also GRE, if you're applying to a school that requires GRE, you need to write. Especially if you're coming into the health program. Usually the health program requires GRE. I think some IT programs also require GRE, but if you have some IT certifications, then they will GRE for you. So it all depends on the program and it all depends on the school. So as you begin to search and all of that, you'll be able to know what your school or what your program requires. So next time when we meet, we'll be talking about GRE, GRE scores, and how you can improve your GRE scores. What GRE scores like programs typically require, depending on the program you are going into. What's the GRE score that they would require? Absolutely, there is a benchmark for GRE. Usually so many schools will expect you to score a certain points. So we'll be talking about all of that next week anyways. Don't let me go into that. But and I also have some GRE materials that, if it's GRE is something that you think you would want to write, we have some GRE materials that I can share with you that might help you in the process. So that's just all I have to say for today. Today we looked at CGPA, and I said that CGPA is one of the major concerns for those that want to travel abroad. Like, is my CGPA high? Especially Nigerian schools. One thing about Nigerian schools is that one thing I realized after I graduated from Nigeria is that, wait, your CGPA from Nigeria is actually not a measure of your true intelligence, because there are so many factors that come into your performance in a Nigerian school. Honestly, there are so many things. So your CGPA, as far as like the Nigerian school is concerned, I won't really say is a true measure of your intelligence, because the educational environment is hostile, and these are some of the things that the schools over here. These are some of the things they consider. They consider that you're coming from in less developed countries where you're coming from a less developed country where education is not facilitated like what you have in the US. So they're kind of lenient, they're understanding. So just graduating from a school in Nigeria, I know that it is not easy, like with all the stress, with all the harsh educational conditions. It's not the easiest thing to do. So if your CGPA is not very high, you don't have to worry. I said that I know this is a major concern for a lot of people. This is like one of the things that hold people back. I didn't graduate the first class. We always think that when you want to travel abroad or to get scholarship abroad, you need to have a first class, or you need to have a 2-1 at least. I want to tell you that you don't need to have a first class or a 2-1. However, your CGPA should be high enough, and however, they should see that you are somebody who knows what you are doing, and they can see that through the whole admission package that you send in. So of course, there is no definite CGPA as far as the schools are concerned. There is no one CGPA that you must have. However, your CGPA should not be less than 2.5. It should not be less than 2.5 after your West evaluation. Your CGPA should not be less than 2.5. Then I also mentioned that the CGPA, even though it's not less than 2.5, we are looking at 2.5 above, 2.5 to 4 point. But that would also depend on your school, on the school that you are applying to, or the school you are looking at. If you are looking at Ivy League schools, of course, we are looking at 3.9, 4 point CGPA, 4 point over 4 point, because we use 4 point over here. So that's what we are looking at. But if you're looking at some government schools, they usually consider 3 points, 3 points, 3.5, anywhere from 3 points, 3.5. Government schools will take that. And in my instance, I'm going to a government school. A lot of international students, especially from Africa, they go to government schools over here. So the government schools usually require 3 points. Now, when you begin to enter like regional schools, which are also government schools, but they are more regional, they would accept 2.7, 2 point anywhere from 2.75, they would usually accept that. Sometimes they may even accept 2.6 depending on the strength of your total application package. Then I also said that it depends on your program. The required CGPA also depends on your program, your intended program of study. There are some programs like the nursing program that would not, that will not back down. They are very strict on their requirements. There are some programs like the IT programs, they are very strict on their requirement. When you begin to look at some administrative programs, they may not be as strict as they may accept you with like 2.6 or 2.75. So those are just the things I wanted to cover today. So let me know how it's going with your West evaluation. Let me know how it's going. Um, for those that have started the process, I know a lot of people will not start the process like this year. This year is already gone. Um, but if you're looking at, traveling abroad anytime from next year, you have to like, start the process. Usually because West, I know with West, they would not delay in sending your transcripts, right? With West, they are pretty hands-on, but when you begin to look at like your individual institution, there's so many factors that come in. Sometimes institutions in Nigeria, they're on strike. Sometimes the non-academic staff, they are on strike and all of that. So some of those local factors may come in. So depending on the timeline you're looking at, it is very important that you start working on your West as soon as possible. Then I know with West, within 7 to 10 days, they would they would they would process your transcript. But the issue now is like at the level of your local university, like going to your local university, asking them to send your transcripts to West. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. That's the level where it delays mostly. So you have to understand the timeline. You have to look at the timeline. Of course, for spring admission, because spring admission is usually in January. So for spring admission, which is January, that has passed. So if you are still looking at people who want to come in the year 2022, that means you'll be looking at the fall admission. You'll be looking at the fall admission, which usually is in August. So for those that, maybe like this whole process is like sudden or they're not ready, they can also look at spring of 2023. But usually, if you are looking for funding or if you want to get funding from your school, you should aim to come in the fall. So either this fall, which is the fall 2022, or the fall 2023, if you're able to start your admission process as depending on your timeline, you have a timeline you're working at, you have a timeline you're looking at, you have your intended time that you think this whole thing would be convenient for you, of course, because there are financial increment attached to it, of course. So you have to work at a pace that is convenient for you. But no matter what time that you're looking at, all this information, I will continue to put them online so that this information will be available to us, will be available to as many people that are interested in this whole process. So I just want to say that if you are still looking at 2022, for those that are looking at 2022, ensure that you do your work as soon as possible, because I know one thing, especially, if you're not coming from like, a box top family. I know one thing you'll be considering is funding. So there's something they call priority. They have priority admission and they have like other ones. So priority is for those that priority is for like people that they usually consider priority first when they want to give funding. And I know funding is important to us on this channel. Funding is very, very important to us. So since funding is important to us, if you are looking at traveling, you want to ensure that you send your application in the priority deadline. You want to ensure that you send your application in the priority deadline, not not like the other one, because they usually consider priority before for funding. Usually they consider those that send the application in early before they consider those that sent it later. So ensure that if you're looking at this whole process, you send in your application early enough. I think priority is like from January to no from anytime from like December to March Usually priority ends in February. There are some schools that will still take priority as a March, but usually it's in February. It's in February. If you're lucky in some programs, you send it in April, they may take you. So that's why I said that you really don't have to, like send it this year. If this is like next year rather, if this whole thing is going to be too fast, you don't have to like rush it, you don't have to send your application in next year. It can still extend towards 2023. It's fine. So guys, we're already 20 minutes in. If you have questions as far as this whole CGPA is concerned, you can leave your questions in the comment section below. Leave your question in the comment section below. I'll attend to them as I see them. So that's all I have for us today. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys next time.